thank everybody for coming. Quite a few announcements. Firstly, today's share is dedicated to Harvey's mother's yahrzeit coming up. Her name is Fega Bas Chanachenach. In the Shama Shav and Aliyah, the yahrzeit tomorrow. Also is dedicated, as discussed, for Shalema, for principal of the high school here, Rabbi David Levine, Rabbi David Aram, Ben Chava, Shabbat Shalema. And thirdly, unfortunately, I'd like to mention, this past week, we lost a wonderful, wonderful member of this share. Dr. Michael Goldstein was somebody that lived the share, that came week in and week out, and he really enjoyed learning. And everyone remembers Michael had a seat back center table, and even the past period when he was sick, he still made every effort to come. He came literally, it looked like, right out of the hospital. Different devices he was dealing with, he had with him, and he did everything he could to come to the share, and he really enjoyed the share. And I think he's an epitome of the concept that Limud Torah is not limited for your years in yeshiva or when you're young. You know, it's a lifelong pursuit to understand, to learn, to enjoy Hashem's Torah. And he's somebody who took tremendous advantage, especially in his later years, in getting involved, not just in this year, but in all this year in the community too. And everyone has a wonderful thing to say about Dr. Michael Goldstein. I'll just say one story. There's so much to say about him, perhaps another time I could say more. I remember a few of the times I would quote medical shilos, especially shilos involving with Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, big posik in Yerushalayim. And Dr. Goldstein would come to me. I would see it in the middle of share, how his face would light up, and he'd run to tell me afterwards this little story, this little interaction that he had when he worked in the hospitals in Yerushalayim. Shlomo Zalman was the posik. And he remembers of Shlomo Zalman coming down to the hospital and them asking different shilos to him. And it wasn't just, okay, he got an answer from a rabbi. He was left from that experience being touched by an Adam Gadol, as great as Shlomo Zalman. It had an impact on his life. And though I never met with Shlomo Zalman, but through seeing how it affected Michael, it blew my mind. It's such a beautiful thing to behold. And it's everyone's loss, it's the community's loss, it's the share's loss. Be'ezras Hashem, his neshama should have an aliyah. Amen. This week's topic generated a lot of buzz in the community. In fact, I believe I've been inspired to give a share on this for a while. I moved to this community 6 years ago, and I knew pretty much towards the beginning the lay of the land about how hot a market it was here in North Miami Beach, and there are constantly families moving in. So a lot of businessmen investing in vacation homes here, and I knew it was quite challenging to get a house. And I know this topic myself. Perhaps at the end I'll tell a personal story. But let me set the scene of a common case which literally happens dozens and dozens of times. I'm not sure if there's anyone in the past, for sure this past 5-6 year period before, who hasn't had an experience like this. You're a nice family, grown family, and look, you need a house. You're part of this North Miami Beach community. and what I'm saying applies to many communities, Jewish communities throughout America, Eretz Yisrael too, all over. You're nice, growing from family, and okay, you start off renting, start off figuring out where you want to be in the community, and after spending some time, you fixate. You know, you have a target. Look, I'd like to be on this side of town, on that side of town, be on this type of block, more happening block, maybe a more quiet block. You basically have your financial ideas, how much money I can spend to afford to spend on a house, how much money can I spend on renovations. You have your basic idea. And now you go about the process, okay, trying to get a house. So, sign goes up, a house is for sale. I'm going to be careful. I know I have people on all sides. I have buyers and sellers in the share. I'll be careful what I say. Sign goes up, house is for sale, and okay, you contact the number, you make an offer, come down to see it. You see it, you have negotiations with the seller, with his agent, and you know the market is you know where the market's at, you know there's probably a lot of people. If you're smart in this neighborhood, if you want a house, there's no deal with that, daddy. You want it, make them a good offer, you got to act quickly. So that's what you do. In fact, you can even have a case, there are people that are, they have their target before the house goes on the market. They know, they hear whispers, these people are getting older, they're looking to move and sell, downsize. You know where the market's at. This person's moving out of town, especially if you get, insider trading. You have the secret. You know this person, that's gold. So you find out a house is for sale basically right when it goes up. You go, you make an offer, and the seller says, sounds great. Let's start. You can talk to your people, let's start writing up the contract, go through it, even to the extent, case, you shook at it, yes, we have a deal. You come back the next day, and unfortunately you find out, the seller tells you, I'm sorry, someone came over to me after we spoke, offered me $50,000 more, $75,000 more, $100,000 more. You never know in this market. And I said yes to him. You can't explain the devastation of that first family, that first prospective buyer. They thought they had a deal. They started packing the boxes or just organizing what they're going to do, planning it out. And next thing you know, they're out. It happens once, it's disappointing. What happens if it happens twice, 3 times, 4 times? Welcome to North Miami Beach. Welcome to anywhere America from community. These things happen. Today we're going to discuss the halachos of this process. Is that correct? Is that wrong? If it's wrong, if it's not correct, how wrong is it? Is it rectifiable? Is there recourse? We'll talk about all of these. But just to, before we get into the background of halacha, just to, put this in perspective, I think this is a big global issue in the frum community. House buying. If you ask, I just saw an interview with someone, the OU appointed a new executive vice president, and the person was talking, what do you think are the biggest global issues in the frum world, or Jewish world? About anti-Semitism, about different things. But one of we called is the frum financial crisis. It costs a lot of money to live life as a frum Jew in the 21st century. You have tuition, Baruch Hashem, everyone wants to send their child to yeshivas. Yeshivas cost money. Even with hair with a step up, it still costs money. Price of groceries, keeping kosher, it's not simple. Everything costs money, especially out of town. Yeah, when you have kids older, talking about camps, talking about seminary, you're talking about making weddings. It's a chiddush that the average frum person is not broke. Most of them are, but it's very tough. The financial strain of quote unquote living a frum Torah life is not easy. And one of the biggest challenges, the biggest expense a person usually spends in his lifetime is the purchasing of a house. That's a big deal. And in New York, in the major frum markets, the price for owning a home is off the charts. And it's pushed just recently, finding more and more, whether it's in the Hasidic world, whether it's in the Ashkenazic world, people spreading out and going to different smaller places. Why are Jews sitting in Jersey City? Because they can't afford to live in Williamsburg, in New Square, in Borough Park. They can't afford it. So home ownership is right there in the middle of it. And when we discuss an issue of animat l'charara, it's not just, okay, you hurt a person's feelings and, get over it, live and learn, it's part of life. There's a bigger picture. Like, this is right at the center of a major financial burden and strain. And the guy's pushed off one house to the next house to the next house. Like, it can make an nafkamina. Is he living in this community? Or is he going to move elsewhere? Is he going to have to somehow find an extra $100,000 to buy a house? It's a big deal. I'll just add one more story. There's an Adam Gadol, recently was nifter. And this Adam Gadol who recently was nifter, in the newspaper wrote up one week how he expressed pain that he never was able to buy a home. Never bought a home. He was a chashuv harav, but didn't necessarily have the big salary to afford it, and spent his whole life renting a house. And it was one thing that he felt bad about. The next week in the newspaper, someone wrote an article, Chas v'shalom, to say that about this Rav. He was above all these things, and it didn't bother him. He was a great Baal Bitachon, and the fact he never owned a home didn't affect him. I knew that Adam Gadol. I think the first article is true. In fact, I'm trying to remember. I think I remember him once remarking that. Huge Talmud Chacham, world renowned. Nothing to do directly with Chafetz Chaim. But this Adam Gadol, the American dream is to own a home. That's what you define the nice American dream. Like apple pie. To own a home. And to be in a situation where you can't get a home, can't buy a home, you're constantly outbid, outmaneuvered, that's a big deal. And it doesn't take away, it's a human feeling, it doesn't take away one iota from that gadol. People are human. It's not a lack of bitachon. Look, he knows, end of the day, everything's from Hashem. But it still could sting, it still could hurt, the fact that you weren't able to buy a home. So what we're going to do today is go through the sources in halacha from the Gemara, the Rishonim, down to the Shulchan Aruch, and try to get as practical as we can within these shaylas. Probably not going to be able to hit every dot my I's, I'm not doing contract there. But every nuance of practical halacha, but what everyone should walk away with, that when you hear the basic parameters, you'll see, you'll understand, you'll know that it's a halachic shayla, and it should be posed to a rav, a posek, who could deal with this. This is not a simple area. Not everyone is holding in these halachos, and Choshen Mishpat for sure, to be able to grasp the nuances. So it's a big topic, a big issue, and we'll deal with it.
Before you start the halakhic aspect, the guy who goes into the house and shakes on it, if he had just a competent realtor or an attorney to do a contract and to give a deposit, it would have locked the deal in.
Right.
I was the realtor on this yeshiva, and we had a contract, and the seller wanted to back out, and the yeshiva had to sue him for what's called specific performance. And right before the trial, their attorney told them, "You are going to lose this fight, and you're going to get their lawyer fees." And their lawyer is Greenberg Traurig, Moshe Learfield. They're very expensive. So at the last minute, they offered a deal. If we'll let you buy it, but everybody takes care of their own legal fees. So that could have been just a solution for any of these. And so if it happened once, okay, they learned. But to happen again, it's like you're not learning.
Okay, so it's a very good point, right? Someone with experience in the market. Yeah, if you have a realtor, if you have someone on your side, if you write up a contract quickly, yeah, that could potentially prevent it. But sometimes these things go so quick, they can't draw up the documents quick enough by the time there's already a second, third, fourth bid. Well, you're right, it's a very good point, right? And Mr. Brass, right? Okay, right? Get your realtor. So let's start, right? We have a few people here ready to advertise. And here we go. So let's read the Gemara. The Gemara is a Gemara here in Kedushin, Daf Nun Tesam and Aleph, on top of your sheets. The Gemara tells a story. Now again, to start off, you have to realize, these stories happen not just to good people, bad people, it happens to everybody. The Gemara starts off with the story of the such between two Amoraim. Rav Gidol having mahapech b'hiyara. Rav Gidol was looking into buying a certain land. He was involved in the purchase of a certain land. Also Rabbi Abba Zavna. Rabbi Abba came in and usurped it and bought it. So Rav Gidol will call the victim, and Rabbi Abba will call the villain. Also Rav Gidol, Kibel Reb Zera. Rav Gidol was very upset, and he wanted to deal with this. But he didn't feel it was right for him to confront Rabbi Abba himself. So he went over to another Rav. Hey, would you confront Rabbi Abba? He went to Reb Zera. It seems Reb Zera wanted to help out, but he was also intimidated. Also Reb Zera, the Kibel Reb Yitzchak Nafka. So he went to another Rav. Chavetz Chaim goes through Hilchos Lashon Hara, how you're allowed to do such things, pass on the injustice. So it seems everyone was a little intimidated to speak to Rabbi Abba. Amalei Hamkin L'Shiyal Etzinu L'Regel. Let's wait till he comes, Yom Tov time here, then we'll talk to him. Kisalik Ashleche. So when they came for Yom Tov, they found him. So Amalei. So the Rav said to Rabbi Abba, Ani Yimad B'Charara, a poor person who is going after buying a loaf of bread, a cake, and someone else comes and takes it away. What's the halacha? The Gemara talks about it as a case. You know, you have a poor person going after a loaf of bread, going after a cake. He's about to buy it, and someone else comes and takes it. What would you say about such a guy? I'll call it, the Gemara's version of taking candy from a baby. So, Amar Lei, so Rabbi Abba said, Nikar Rasha, such a person, we call a Rasha. So they set him up for the kill. So the Elamai, my time of it hachi. So they gave him quite sharp musr. So how come you did this? You did this to Rav Gidel. Rav Gidel was going to buy a piece of land, and you jumped in and you bought it. Amar lei lo aviyadina. I didn't know. I didn't know that he was trying to buy it. Okay. Hashanami nesvin nihile mar. The Rav wasn't satisfied. He said, okay, great. But now, what are you going to do to rectify it? So, Amar lei zvuni lo mizavni lo. I can't sell it to him. I can't sell it to Rav Gidel, the first potential buyer. The Arak Hamayisihi, the Lomasam the Milsa. It's my first land I bought. Not just because of government benefits. First time home buyer. But there's some idea in Mazel that's a siman ra to sell the first thing you bought. I'm not giving a share in Mazel today, but that's what he said. So the Rav said, okay, great. Ibai b'matana. Mishkol. So why don't you go and give it to him as a present? To his credit, Rabbi Abba was ready to. Except, Rav Gidel no lachasla. Rav Gidel himself didn't want to accept the present. Someone who hates presents lives. I'm not accepting a present of a field of a house. This also needs explanation. We have multiple shirim in one Gemara. So what happened? This Gemara sounds quite, I'm not sure of the word.
Extreme.
Yeah. Rabbi Abba lo nachisla mishum dahachabo Rav Gidel. Rabbi Abba wouldn't go take that land because he felt bad that Rav Gidel was the one. He was supposed to get it. But Rav Gidel didn't take it, we said, because of Sodei Matanas Yefke. He didn't want a present. He wanted a handout. Lo mar nachisle, lo mar nachisle. This one didn't want it, this one didn't get it. What happens when you have a land that's hefker nobody wants? With sikna ara d'rabbanan, you leave it in yeshiva on the hefker table. Anything people don't want, they just dump in yeshiva sometimes. But that's the story. Now the second half of the story is going to come up. We're going to talk about this particular case and the funny things that happen at the end. But zeroing in on the first part of the Gemara says that there's some concept of ani hamahapach b'charara. If you have a poor person going after a purchase, right? It doesn't have to be only a house, a field, even the purchase of, metalplin, food, computer, whatever it is. So, such a thing, if you violate that, you're nikra rasha. That's harsh. Now, Rashi makes 2 points which are both noteworthy. You look in Rashi, Animat B'charara, it's the middle of the Rashis. Rashi says, Machzar achrei l'zakos bo min hafker. The person was going after it to get that cake from Hefker. Oshi eno balabayas, or the balabayas are going to give it to him as a present. Rashi's learning that this case applies not only to a case of business, of a sale, but additionally to a case of where you're getting it for free. You're getting Hefker, right? The government is giving out sandbags, a handout. Someone's giving a present. So that also, Rashi understands, would fall under this category of Aniyamat B'charara. And there be rights to the first person who gets there, who's involved in it. Nikra Rasha. Let's read the next Rashi. Rashi says, Sheyorid l'chayi chavero. You know why you called a Rasha? Because you're tapping in, you're going into your friend's livelihood, friend's parnasa, your friend's, as we painted the picture before, this affects your friend's whole financial universe. And that's an Isser. You're going to go and take away parnasa, take away money from a friend, from another Jew. That's an Isser of Animat B'charar. That's why you call it Rasha. Now if you look at Tosfos, that's Rashi's idea. Tosfos argues on Rashi. Remember Rashi said that this case applies whether it's a business case where you're buying a field, buying a product, or even Hefker and Matana. Tosfos gives another idea. I'll skip to the middle of Tosfos. Umishma'achi kama and dinikar rasha. Ki loma machzor al zo shetarach ba chavero yilch v'yishtak b'makom acher. You know why you're called a rasha? Look, your friend was going to go buy this house. Your friend was going to buy this object. Why are you taking away from your friend? Go buy a different house. Go buy a different object. That's why you're called a rasha, Tosfos says. But in contrast, alam haisa charar the hefker. If this was a unique opportunity, this cake, this house was a unique, it was hefker, it was a great deal. Leka Isser. In such a case, there is no Isser. Shim lo zocha bezos, lo yimtzach cheres. If you don't find this, you won't find another one. Major machlokas, Rashi and Tosfos. Tosfos puts down over here, Rabbeinu Tam says, a svara, and limits the jurisdiction of these laws of Animat B'charar. It only applies by a business deal where you could tell the quote-unquote villain, the guy who ends up buying it, hey, why'd you buy this one? Go buy a different one. But if you're in a situation like a case of it's hefker, you're getting it for free. It's a matana, you're getting a present. And the post can talk about or crazy cheap deal might also fall into that category. You're getting an amazing deal. There's no other house like it. That doesn't mean there's no other house in the neighborhood that when you open the door, there's like a 2-story like opening. It means something super significant. Doesn't mean this. Every house obviously has different pitch of goods. You talk to real estate agents; they'll show you all the beauty of each individual house. It talks about something significant. It's the biggest house in the neighborhood. I'm not able to get another house. That might be different. I need the biggest house, and this is the biggest house. So if it's a unique opportunity, according to Rabbeinu Tam, you're not a villain. That's fair. The only time we ask that you should let the other guy go first is only where you can get it somewhere else. That's a major nafkamina between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. Rashi says it doesn't matter. Every single case, you're hurting out the first guy who was involved in buying this house, in buying this object. Every single time, Nikra Rasha. It's also for you, the second guy. It's also for you to be a villain. But Rabbeinu Tam limits it and says, no, you're only a villain if you couldn't have gotten it another way. You're only a villain if you could have gotten it another way. But if it's a unique opportunity, the halacha is, it's fair game for you to be involved too, even if you're coming second. That's what Rabbeinu Tam says. Yes?
We haven't said he didn't know that Reb Gidel was going to the house.
Yes. So I'm going to get to that. The
I
whole
mean, that was his only answer.
Yes.
Like,
Right. We're going to get to later the issue of halach l'mayis. So what do you deal with if the guy doesn't know? That is not so clear. Yes.
At what point of engagement does any of this
Yes. So this we're going to deal with. what exactly is the definition of mahapech? How into the process does the first guy have to be for the second one to have the halacha he has to hold off? That we'll also get to. But so far, I'm going with what the Rishonim talk about. The Rishonim don't talk about some of these issues. That comes in the later postscript. So, right off the bat, I think this does need some type of explanation. How do we explain the basis of machlokas between Rashi and Tosfos? Major machlokas. Rashi says, in any situation where you're hurting somebody, whether it's hefker, business, matana, unique opportunities, doesn't matter. First guy always wins. Tosfos says, no, he limits it tremendously. If what's for sale is something you can't get anywhere else, then why am I a villain for coming in and outbidding you? That's fair market. I need this too. Just because you came first, you have a right? So what's Rashi hold? Rashi holds, yeah, you do have a right. So I found a very interesting point. There's a Ran on this Gemara. The Ran explains Tosfos' Shita. And the Ran adds the following idea. It's a second wide line. I'll start actually from the first wide line, the middle of the line. Someone who's coming to get something from Hefker, Inami, the Matana, or by Matana again, what we call these unique opportunities. There's no problem of animat b'charar. You're not doing anything wrong. And he brings a comparison. Couldn't bring him a parak on the Kabbalah. The Gemara says, the matana less bon mishum dina the bar metzra. That by matana, there's no concept of bar metzra. Bar metzra is its own a separate halacha, but it also comes up majorly in real estate. Just to touch on it, what that means, if a house is for sale, really the right of first dibs on that house, first bids, goes to the immediate neighbors. Right? And this comes up in the neighborhood quite a bit too. The first neighbors have the neighbors around the house have first rights at buying that house. And we'll talk, that's also a halacha in business. It deserves its own share. But just look at the comparison. The Ran's comparing these two halachas, just like animat b'charar, the guy who gets in first, where it's not dealing with any neighbors, he has a right. Comparing it to bar metzra, the next door neighbor has a right. And the words he writes, the alma, the chihai, leto mishum v'asisa hayash v'atov. In a case of matana, in the case of hefker, where it's a unique opportunity, you're not violating v'asisa hayash v'atov. The way the Ran is learning, that's a different source than we saw a moment ago. The Ran is learning in terms of Rabbeinu Tam. The source, you want to know why there's a halacha called Aniyamat B'charara, that you can't usurp, come in second, and take someone else's house that he was about to buy? It's a violation of the pasuk of the halacha, the asisa hayashav atov. A Jew is expected to do what is straight and what is good. There's a certain standard we call yashros, mesilas yesharim, the avos will call yesharim. A Jew is expected to behave on a different plane than the average person. Asisa hayashav atov. So it hit me that l'chora, you could explain the machlokas between Rashi and Tosfos based upon what the source of the halacha is. Rashi, we saw earlier, why you called it Rasha? Rashi called it because you're Yoredim of Chayav. You're hurting the person's business. That's a very, what I call, one-dimensional issue. If there's a victim, if you're mazik somebody, you're hurting his business, you're hurting his financial standing. Game over. Doesn't matter if it's a unique opportunity, doesn't matter. It's hefker. If this other guy got there first, and by you coming in, you're going to hurt him, you're going to take away something you otherwise was going to get, That's 100% ulcer. Game over. That's Rashi's perspective based on the source that this is called Yored Imo L'chayiv. You're taking away his finances. Tosfos, in contrast, the way the Ran understands him, he's basing this halacha on the asisa hayashav atov. What you are doing has to be yashros. You, the second guy, what you're doing has to be yasher v'tov. That, by definition, is two-dimensional. You have to sort of weigh the first guy's rights and the second guy's rights. Is this second guy really a villain or not? In Rashi's world, just to contrast again, Rashi's looking at it one-dimensionally. Is he a victim? The answer is yes, game over. But Tosfos is looking at it, according to the Ran, there's two dimensions to look at. You can't just look at the victim. You have to first look, could I call this second guy a villain? If he's justified in doing what he's doing, there's a good reason why he's bidding for this. There's no other place to get it. It's a unique opportunity. Then the second guy is not a villain. If you could justify what you're doing, I don't just mean an excuse, but a clear halachic justification, that's why Rabbeinu Tam gives more leeway. Rabbeinu Tam says, no, that would not be a violation. Yes?
So according to Rashi, does that mean everyone is a villain? Like no matter whoever comes in second? Because the first guy's always going to feel that even if the guy was justified and it was only $1,000 more.
Yeah, yes. It seems like, according to Rashi's opinion, we always, these halachos are made to protect the rights of potential victims. While Tosfos looks at it, no, these halachos are part of a broader scheme. Torah says, "Vasisa yashav atov." So we have to measure, are you an aggressor? Are you a villain? If yes, then okay, then he's a victim. Then he has rights. But we can't look at one side without looking at the other side. Very interesting.
When you spoke about the neighbors having the first right of refusal,
Yeah.
is that only for a homestead neighbor, or if a person owns a property, it's an investment property, does it count for that as well?
Great question. Great question. Not possible. You're right. You know, part of the halakha of bar mitzvah is it makes your life easier of how to live. Now, look, I could combine, I could build one bigger house, I could have my kids going back and forth. But you're right, if a person's just doing it as a vacation home, as an investment, not so simple. Now, one other point I would show you from the Ran. At the end of the Ran makes another interesting categorization, which has two important points. The Ran says, Makom Makom, in the last two lines of the Ran. Makom Makom, Al Shem Ha'apav V'charara, Uba'ach V'nol L'menu, Eina Nikra Rasha. If the first guy was a rich man, if I were a rich man, the first guy is rich, so then we say he's not called a Rasha, the second guy who comes in. Why? Lechem udeso. First of all, he has bread in his house. Only to go and buy whatever he wants. So the Ran limits, again says, not everybody's a victim. If the first guy's an usher, he's not a victim. It's very interesting. The Ran understands Rav Gidol was a rich man. And yet Rav Gidol, we see from the Gemara, he was a victim. How come he's claiming victimhood? We saw his W-2s. We know that Rav Gidol had money. So why the Gemara is protecting Rav Gidol? So the Gemara says, you protect the first guy even if he's an usher when it comes to land purchases, real estate. Because it's not so easy to buy land. We would protect, even though normally I'm not going to protect the rights of the first guy where he's a man of means and he could always buy some other thing. There's no protective clause for a victim if he's an usher, but there's an exception to that case. If you're a rich man, if you have, by karka, by land, by real estate, where it's very hard to find, where everyone needs it. So there we say, no, even the rich man deserves protection. Right? It doesn't mean the second guy has a right to come in over the first guy. This, you have to learn, is specifically a svara, at least within this last point, to protect the rich man. Now, I want to get to the Shulchan Aruch. See, there's a lot to do here. I can easily spend multiple weeks on this. But let's go to the Shulchan Aruch. And what's beautiful is when you go through a Gemara of the Rishonim, then you see how the Shulchan Aruch paskins. You see a lot of it just follows through. Hamatzar Acha Davar L'Knoso. This is the Mechaber, the Beis Yosef writes, Shulchan Aruch Oshem Mishpat, Siman Reish Lamed Zayin. Hamatzar Acha Davar L'Knoso. Someone's going after something to buy. Right? You have a house for sale, all this sochro, all to rent out. Also, I could tell you there are big ox vacation rentals. Try getting a vacation rental now for Pesach. Right here. Right here in Orlando. Come on, anywhere in South Florida. Right? Not simple. So, bein b'karka, bein medalton. Again, whether it's land purchase or just, buying an object. Uba'ach v'kano, and the second one comes and buys it. Nikra Rasha is called a Rasha. If you look at the bottom of your sheets, I have the Sma, one of the Mefarshim in the Shulchan Aruch. Look what he writes. What's the ramification of being called a Rasha? When the president gets up to make the announcements, Shabbos morning, he says, you'd like to announce a Rasha. This guy usurped someone else. Right? Boy, that would make people pay attention to the announcements, no?
No, he's going to be the next president.
Right? Welcome! And next thing you know, he's giving, Boy, I don't know if you can put this in the shul bulletin, or someone that's the same thing as an announcement. But obviously the reasoning behind this is because we look quite askance on someone who does this. Nikra Rasha is not just a whisper. So another nafkamina, Moshe Feinstein writes, he's postulated this. Do such a thing? Not possible. Now, Vuadin, this is a whole other element. Very interesting. These halachos also apply to you as a potential employee. I provide my services. No. I'm the best band, best DJ you'll get for Purim. Okay? I have a deal with somebody. Could I then go to someone else and offer hey, if you give me $500 more, I'll do you instead. You have just violated, nothing to do with houses, personal employment. It works with vendors too. All different types, right? The nursing home is getting products from this company. They'll say, how much are they giving it to you for? You know what? Now we're talking about a case where it's up for contract and being debated and all this. You're in a contract. How much are they giving you toilet paper for? I'll knock off a few $1,000s in the deal. They'll switch to me. Animat b'charar. All these halachas, it's so far-reaching, the ramifications of these halachas. Now he writes, "V'yesh omrim shembo lezakos behefker o lekabel matana me'acher ubach v'kadmo." If it's by a case of hefker or matana, a unique opportunity, eina nikra rasha kivin she'eino davar hamatzi lo b'makam acher. Shulchan Aruch brings the Shita of Rabbeinu Tam, the Ran, that Animat B'chorah does not apply in that case. A little later, the Shulchan Aruch brings the Yish Omrim de Loshna. And some say, which we know is Rashi, says doesn't make for a difference. So the Shulchan Aruch is bringing down the Machlokas Rashi and Tosfos. The Mechaber, the Beit Yosef, doesn't pass it. Okay, does that make a difference for Sfardim? Check out. Haga the Ramah writes, Visvara Harishona Nira Ikar. I see someone just became an Ashkenazi. The Ramah paskins to be more lenient. Svara Harishona Nira Ikar. Yeah, you paskin like Tosfos. That's what the Ramah writes. We'll see. Got to Ramosha Feinstein himself says that we paskin like Tosfos, but the Baal Nefesh, not Baal Nefesh. Baal Nefesh, a man of stature, should be machmer, even like Rashi, even by a unique opportunity. That's what Ramosha writes. Va'afilu svarazu, Dalfu ba'ani. Now he continues at the point we saw at the end of the Ran, that even this whole idea is only by an ani. Avu ba'asher lo. The victim was a rich man. We don't say that. Im lo sheina matzoi. The azah fil ba'asher mikri rash. Unless the case is that the object is you can't find, or like the Ran talked about by land. So then, even if you take it away from a rich man, you, the second guy, are called the villain, or called the rasha. Important point. This is the point brought up earlier. What constitutes, what are the parameters of called being involved in a sale? Now this we didn't see in the Rishonim, definitely not in the Gemara. All the Gemara just says there was Rav Gidol's Mahapech Vayarav. I did find in Nachronim, they do talk about, the Atzmos Yosef, when Nachronim talks about in the Gemara, the difference of whether you yourself go to negotiate the deal or you send a shliach. Now, you giving the argument before why it's better to send a realtor, someone on your behalf, to be involved in the process. But according to some Achronim, it might be important for you to go too. The more you're involved in the case, the more rights you have. You're actively involved. But look how the Shulchan Aruch qualifies it. He writes, "V'chozel umari el shekvar paskul adamim shebenehem." The Ramah talks about a situation where the money was already finalized. You finalized how much the house is going to be for sale for. Ve'ein l'chusrim el kinyan. All you're missing is a kinyan, right? You didn't close, didn't go to contract, but you agreed on the price of the sale. Avol l'chusrim adayin hafsaka shamocha rotza b'kach v'akona rotza yoser b'zol mota la'acha l'kanosov. You're still negotiating. The seller wants more, the buyer's not ready to do that yet. It does not apply. Now, that's how the Ramah is writing it here in the Shulchan Aruch. The Prisha on the Shulchan Aruch, when the Mefarshim, as well as Moshe, the Igros Moshe, Moshe Mishpat, Simon Samach, which is in the back, which I'll get to. Rav Moshe says that's not true. Rav Moshe extends it even further, a bigger protection. Even, he says, halacha ma'isa, you have to be choshesh for this halacha of animat b'charara, even before you actually come to conclusion how much you're selling it for. When you're in the later stages, now I'm not sure exactly where the cutoff point is. But you're already negotiating for a few days, you're going back and forth, people involved in these negotiations, you can know, you have a feeling, sides know, look, we're going to get the deal done. It's just a question of how to dot the I's. At that point, even at that point, Moshe says, it's also for someone else to get involved. If you're just taking bids on it, that's different. Okay, someone else could get involved. But the case I started with, right here in the neighborhood, the people, they shook hands on it. Once you shake hands on it, halacha, we'll get to in a moment, that's a big deal. Even if you make any kinyan, you just gave your word. Right? Even without a handshake. She's a woman. Right? Whatever it is. L'maisa, at that point, the Shulchan Aruch says once you come to financial agreement That's a done deal, and there's protection for that first guy. And Ramosha, some Nachronim take it even a step further. Even if you're in the later stages of negotiations, you're about there, you also deserve protection. One more point the Shulchan Aruch brings, Beinim HaMocher Goy O Yisrael. This does not matter who the seller is. Obviously the seller is a non-Jew, he's not bound by any halacha. But you as a buyer, the other person, the buyer is also a Jew, you have a buyer, have a responsibility to the other Jew, the other buyer. And you can't do that to him. Now, in terms of the seller himself, this is another important halacha that also deserves its own share, is if I'm selling something, this happens all the time. You're selling a house, you do your math, look at the market, you think a certain price. You offer that price, someone comes to you, I'm willing to give you that price in full, great, even if it's less than full, but you're happy with what the person offered, you say yes to it. Next thing you know, your friend comes over to you and says, hey, Maish, what are you doing? You could have gotten another $100,000 for your house. Totally missed the boat. Really? Yeah, go try it. Besides the fact that it's also for that person to do what he just did. You're not allowed to go over to someone else and instigate him to do more. That's also part of this issue. But if the person would renege on that deal, that's called mechusri amana. You're lacking trustworthiness. Sheris Yisrael Yaso Avo, the pasuk says a Jew doesn't do something which is an avo, an abomination, horrible thing. And that too is called a rasha. And that too is viewed, no kinyan, just gave you word. If you back out of the deal without, look, you could potentially go to the other person, say, hey, maybe you can potentially work something out with him. But you can't back out of the deal. That's a big deal. You can't do that.
Shulchan Aruch just says that it's the mocher, whether or not the seller is a Jew. Does that mean that the Iker Hadin one could back out of a deal if the buyer was a goy?
Yeah, so these are protective halachos, I believe, for Jews. Yes. Backing out of a deal, that's a little different. And with all these things, you always have to be careful for Chol Hashem. And look, you have to know business practices. If it's normal, and I don't mean normal for cheats, but normal for people, look, contracts, you can back it legally, you are allowed to back out of the contract. Different, steps, whatever it is. If you have a legal right, you could back out. If you don't have a legal right and you're pulling off something which is not so kosher, these halachas, it's funny. There are a lot of halachas which are popular. Chav Yisrael sometimes becomes like a big popular thing, and some people are makbil and yashon and this. You go through the halachas, what exactly the Yisurim are. Monetary areas, you don't usually find people so excited to be machmir. Especially might cost them some, big money. Okay, we'll talk about these stop signs, yes. Stop signs are different. People are not gorish that, it's stop if you want, They have an asterisk underneath the stop sign. But, Lamaisa, these areas are tricky. A person always has to be careful not to make a chol Hashem. But it's a big time halachas. Now, Ramosha has a whole big tshuva in the back. I don't have time to go through the whole back and forth within the Gemara. But there's a major machlokas achronim. Okay, a lot of these cases, you don't necessarily know who the other buyer is. You don't know there is another potential buyer. You go in, and the guy doesn't tell you anything. You make an offer, and next thing you knew, your neighbor is not talking to you. He's not giving you shalach manos. And you find out later, because you just outbid him for the house. You feel horrible. It's your house. You bought it, right? Is there any recourse? So the Piskei Tshuva brings in Shulchan Aruch that if this happened by accident, shogeg, you didn't know, halacha is you're not a rasha. You can keep the house. Obviously, try to make the guy feel better, but you have rights to the house. Rav Moshe Feinstein has this lengthy tshuva in the back where he says, absolutely not. Even if it happened to shogeg, you still would have to go and give it back. And you know where Moshe's proof is?
Gemara.
It's Gemara. Because the whole case was that Rabbi Abba did it by accident. And the Rav is coming to Rabbi Abba, okay, now what are you going to do? The first opinion, this state Tshuva looked at it, okay, it's like a Midas Chasidus to give back. But Moshe says the Rav wouldn't be Toveah from him, wouldn't ask of him to do a Midas Chasidus. So, no. Rav Moshe says you have a raya from this Gemara, you won't accept otherwise, even if it's happened by accident, you have an obligation to go, you should go and sell the house to the next person. Right? Did I say that clear? I know a lot of people listening to this share on live stream or later, and they wanted the word to get out in the neighborhood, so there I said it. Even if it happens b'shogeg, okay, see if you can find a post that possible like the Piskei Tshuva over Rav Moshe. But Rav Moshe himself clearly writes in the Tshuva that if you did it, even by accident, the halacha is you should pass on the house to the guy who got it first. Very, very major halacha. Just to conclude, so obviously it's a big topic and deserves a lot of hak. It's not easy. And look, there's two sides to every story. And, I'll tell you two stories. One, someone shared with me, from someone involved in real estate in the community, talking about the share. So he remembers a case where someone sold a house. There also was an issue of bar mitzvah. There was a neighbor who wanted the house next to him, and even years before it went to sale, they talked about it. And they said, okay, hey, no, you put up for sale, you're going to come to me first, right? Well, I'll give you the market price. Don't worry about it. Yeah. So that really involved Animat L'Charara as well as bar mitzvah. And the guy sold it without going to the neighbor. The neighbor went to him, like, what's going on here? He challenged him, take him to court, to the Rav, the Bezdin. And I said, the guy back down. He gave the house, which he bought. The buyer didn't know of any of this. Right? Maisa, to his credit, said, the other guy wants it, forget it, I'll give it to him. That is an impressive thing. The same way, you have people that usurp and get involved in this, but there are a lot of good people out there, even if it's a big nisayim, and you can't judge people in this. It's very hard. You don't know the financial, if you knew what he was going on financially in his life and his shalom bias issues, he wouldn't look like such a villain. You have to know. But practically, for somebody to say, I bought this house, I know of any other guy, and now I find out about this, okay, I'll give it over, that's a pretty impressive thing. I should tell you, I myself was a protected, in a Shemayim, these halachas. I bought my house, my block, from Ed, the wonderful Shabbos guy of 171st Terrace. Ed, African-American, who's an avid reader of the Bible, wonderful man. I went with him, I didn't go with the realtor, and we negotiated a deal. I gave him a good offer, and looked like we were going to do it. He told me, not long after my offer, someone came in, offered a very good offer, cash. Cash. There's a lot of fun things you could do with cash. That's quite an offer. To his credit, Ed and his wife said they spoke it over with us first. They also felt they wanted to sell it to a family. They knew we had a whole family. And to his credit, I have more stories about him. He's a real tzaddik. But he sold us the house over that other guy. So, as someone who's protected,
You have to provide a Shabbos going now since
yeah, I did have tied on some people, I took away the Shabbos guy. But hopefully I helped them with halacha too. But, Lamaisa, these halachas, derachar darchei noam, v'asisa hayashav ha'atov, a person should do what's just and right. Bez Hashem, we all follow halacha to the best of our ability. We don't lose, we only have what to gain. Thank you all very much for listening. A wonderful, wonderful week.